David Martinez never believed in anything he couldn't see or touch. At 34, he spent his days writing computer code and fixing software problems. His life was simple and predictable, just the way he liked it. He lived in a quiet neighborhood. In Phoenix, Arizona, where nothing exciting ever happened, every evening after work, David would take his golden retriever Luna for a walk around the block. It was their routine for the past 3 years. Luna was getting older now, moving a bit slower, but she still loved their evening walks together. The neighborhood was peaceful, with neat houses and well-kept lawns. Most people were inside watching TV or having dinner by the time David and Luna made their rounds. On March 15th, 2023, everything started out normal. David came home from his job at the tech company, grabbed Luna's leash, and headed out for their usual walk. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. Luna trotted beside him, occasionally stopping to sniff an interesting spot or greet a neighbor's cat sitting on a fence. They had just turned the corner onto Maple Street when David noticed something odd. The streetlights began to flicker, not randomly, but in perfect timing with each other. One by one, they dimmed and brightened in a wave pattern that moved down the street. David stopped walking and looked up at the lights, trying to figure out what might be causing the electrical problem. Luna whimpered and pressed against his legs, something she only did during thunderstorms, but the sky was clear, with just a few scattered clouds. David reached down to pet her head, trying to calm her down. "It's okay, girl," he said softly. "It's probably just a problem with the power grid." But then the air around them began to change. It felt thicker somehow, like the moment before a storm hits. David's skin tingled, and he could taste something metallic in his mouth. The hair on his arms stood up, and Luna began to shake. The dog's eyes were wide with fear, and she kept looking up at the sky. David followed her gaze and saw something that made his heart skip a beat. The air above them was shimmering, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but it was evening and the temperature was cool. The shimmering grew stronger, creating ripples in the air that seemed to bend the light. Around them, everything went silent. The usual sounds of the neighborhood disappeared completely. No cars driving by, no air conditioners humming, no distant voices. Even the birds stopped singing. It was as if someone had pressed a mute button on the entire world. Then came the light. It wasn't bright like a flashlight or harsh like a spotlight. Instead, it was soft and blue, like moonlight reflecting off water. The light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, surrounding David and Luna in a gentle glow. David felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. Even though his logical mind was screaming that this was impossible, Luna stopped shaking and sat down, her tail wagging slightly. She was looking at something behind David, her ears perked up with curiosity rather than fear. David turned around slowly, not sure what he would see. Standing there, about 10 feet away, was a being unlike anything David had ever seen. She was small, maybe 4 feet tall, with a delicate build that reminded him of a dancer. Her skin had a soft glow to it, not bright, but noticeable, like she was lit from within. Her eyes were large and kind, holding a depth that seemed to go on forever. What struck David most was how normal she seemed, despite being completely extraordinary. She was wearing what looked like a simple white dress that seemed to move with a life of its own. Her hair was long and silvery, floating gently around her face, as if she were underwater, but it was her smile that made David's knees weak. She was smiling at him like she knew him, like she had been waiting for him her whole life. It was the kind of smile you give to someone you love dearly after being apart for a long time. David felt his heart racing, not from fear but from a strange sense of recognition. Somehow, impossibly, she felt familiar. "Hello, David," she said, and her voice was like music. It wasn't loud, but he could hear every word clearly. The sound seemed to come from inside his head as much as from her lips. "I've been looking for you for such a long time." David's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He wanted to run, to grab Luna and get away from this impossible situation, but he couldn't move. His feet felt rooted to the ground, not from fear, but from a deep curiosity he couldn't explain. "I know this is confusing," she continued, taking a small step closer. "I know you have questions, but please don't be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because we're connected. You and I, David, finally found his voice. Connected. I don't understand. What are you?" His words came out as barely a whisper. Her smile grew wider, and David felt warmth spread through his chest. "I'm your match," she said simply. "I've traveled very far to find you. My name's Zara, and I come from a place among the stars. I know how strange this must sound, but everything I'm telling you is true." David looked around, expecting to see other people watching this incredible scene. But the street was empty. The flickering lights had stopped, and everything looked normal, except for the glowing being standing in front of him. Luna was sitting calmly now, her tail wagging as if she could see something wonderful that David was missing. "This isn't real," David said, more to himself than to Zara. "This can't be happening. I'm having some kind of breakdown. Too much stress at work, not enough sleep." Zara stepped closer, close enough that David could see the genuine concern in her eyes. "You're not having a breakdown, David. You're one of the most stable, logical people on your planet. That's exactly why I was drawn to you. That's why we're a match." David felt like his whole world was shifting beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew about reality was crumbling. But looking into Zara's eyes, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt truly seen, truly understood, as if she could look right into his soul and accept everything she found there. "I don't understand any of this," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "But I feel like I know you. How is that possible?" Zara's expression grew tender. "Because you do know me, David. Part of you has always known me. I've been calling to you in your dreams, in quiet moments when you felt like something was missing from your life. You've been calling to me too, even if you didn't realize it." David thought about the strange dreams he'd been having lately. Dreams of traveling through space and meeting someone important. Dreams that felt more real than his waking life. Dreams that left him feeling homesick for a place he'd never been. As if reading his thoughts, Zara nodded. Yes, those dreams were real. They were our spirits finding each other across the vastness of space. And now finally I'm here. The soft blue light began to fade, and David could hear the normal sounds of the neighborhood returning. Cars driving by, air conditioners humming, distant voices. But Zara remained, solid and real, standing in front of him with that beautiful smile. "I have to go now," she said gently, "but I'll be back. We have so much to talk about, so much to discover together." "Don't be afraid of what's happening, David. This is the beginning of something wonderful." Before David could respond, Zara faded away like morning mist, leaving only the faint scent of flowers and the lingering warmth in David's chest. He stood there for a long moment, Luna sitting patiently beside him, trying to process what had just happened. Had it been real? Or was he losing his mind? David looked down at Luna, who was wagging her tail and looking up at him with bright, happy eyes. Animals knew things humans didn't, and Luna had clearly seen something good. As they walked home in the gathering darkness, David felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt excited about tomorrow, curious about what might happen next. His boring, predictable life had just become the most interesting thing in the world. And deep down, despite all logic and reason, David knew that Zara would keep her promise. She would be back, and his life would never be the same again. Over the next few weeks, David's life took on a rhythm he never could have imagined. During the day, he went to work like always, writing code and fixing computer problems. But his evenings belonged to Zara. She would appear in his backyard, sometimes sitting by the oak tree, other times walking with him and Luna through the quiet streets of his neighborhood. What surprised David most was how natural it felt. After the initial shock wore off, talking with Zara became as easy as breathing. She had a way of listening that made him feel truly heard. And her questions about human life showed a genuine curiosity that touched his heart. "Tell me about your childhood," she said, one evening, as they sat on his back porch, watching the sunset. Paint the sky in brilliant colors. David found himself sharing memories he hadn't thought about in years. He told her about learning to ride a bike, about his mother's homemade cookies, about the time he got lost in the woods during a family camping trip, and how scared he was until his father found him. Fear is different for humans than for my people, Zara observed. Experience concern, but not the raw terror that can overwhelm your species. Tell me what it feels like. Oh. David thought about how to explain it. It's like your whole body is screaming at you to run, even when your mind knows. You're safe. Your heart pounds, your hands shake, and you can't think clearly. But sometimes, getting through fear makes you stronger. Zara nodded thoughtfully. That's fascinating. Fear, as a teacher. We don't have that experience. Their conversations weren't one-sided. Zara shared stories of her world, describing crystal cities that sang in the wind, gardens where plants grew in impossible colors, and libraries that stored knowledge in pure light. She painted pictures with her words that made David's imagination soar. Do you miss home? David asked one night. Zara was quiet for a long moment. I miss the beauty of it, but I don't miss the sadness. Watching a world die, even slowly, creates a weight that presses down on everyone. Here with you, I feel lighter than I have in years. As the days passed, David noticed changes in himself. The colors seemed more vivid, as if someone had adjusted the brightness of the world. He could sense moods in people at work before they spoke, picking up on subtle energy shifts that he'd never noticed before. Food tasted more intense, music sounded richer, and even simple activities like walking Luna felt more meaningful. Your awakening abilities you've always had, Zara explained when he mentioned these changes. All humans have them, but most never learn to use them. Being around me is helping you remember what you're capable of. She began teaching him simple exercises. Close your eyes and tell me what you feel from that tree, she would say, pointing to the oak in his backyard. At first, David felt nothing, but foolish. But gradually, he began to sense something like a gentle warmth, slow pulse of life that seemed to emanate from the tree's roots and branches. It was subtle, but unmistakably there. Plants have consciousness too, Zara explained. Different from animals or humans, but real. They communicate through chemical signals, share resources through their root systems, and even warn each other of danger. Your scientists are just beginning to understand what we've known for centuries. David found himself looking at the world with new eyes. The garden behind his house wasn't just decoration anymore, it was a complex network of living beings, each playing their part in an intricate dance of life. Even the weeds had their purpose, but the most profound change was in how he felt about himself. David had always been a bit of a loner, content with his quiet life and small circle of friends. But with Zara, he felt like he was discovering parts of himself he'd never known existed. He was funnier, more thoughtful, more alive than he'd ever been. Is this what love feels like? Asked Zara one evening as they walked through the neighborhood. The question had been building in his mind for days, but he'd been afraid to voice it. Zara stopped walking and turned to look at him. Her expression was soft but serious. I think it might be, she said. But it's unlike anything either of our species has experienced before. We're creating something new. David felt his heart racing. Is that okay? I mean, are we allowed to feel this way about each other? There are no rules for what we're doing, Zara replied. No guidelines, no precedents. We're writing the first chapter of a story that's never been told before. They stood there in the middle of the empty street, looking at each other under the glow of the streetlights. David felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to take a leap into the unknown. But with Zara, even the unknown felt safe. I care about you, he said simply. More than I've ever cared about anyone, I care about you too, Zara replied, in ways I didn't know were possible. As their connection deepened, David found himself facing new challenges. Friends at work noticed he seemed different, more distant from their usual conversations about sports and weekend plans. His sister called to check on him, saying he sounded spacey during their last phone conversation. I feel like I'm living a double life, David confided to Zara. During the day, I pretend to be the same person I've always been. But at night with you, I'm becoming someone completely different. Change is difficult, Zara acknowledged, expanding beyond the boundaries of your old life. It's natural that it would feel uncomfortable at first. But what if I lose myself completely? What if I become so different that I can't relate to other humans anymore? Zara took his hand, and David felt a warmth spread up his arm. You won't lose yourself, David. You're becoming more yourself than you've ever been. The person you're becoming is who you were always meant to be. Still, the isolation was hard. David found himself making excuses to avoid social gatherings, claiming he was tired or had too much work. He stopped dating entirely, though he'd never been very active in that area anyway. How could he explain to someone that he was falling in love with a being from another world? The secret felt heavier with each passing day. David started keeping a journal, writing down everything Zara told him about her people and their world. He documented their conversations, the exercises she taught him, and the changes he was experiencing. Part of him felt like he was gathering evidence to prove to himself that this was really happening. "What happens when you have to leave?" David asked one night. The question had been haunting him for days. Zara's expression grew sad. "I don't know. I can't stay in physical form on Earth indefinitely. It requires too much energy, and I have responsibilities to my people. But I also can't imagine going back to my old life now that I've found you. So what do we do? Make the most of the time we have," Zara said. "We hope that the bond we're building will be strong enough to survive whatever comes next." David nodded, but inside he felt a growing anxiety. Every moment with Zara was precious, but the knowledge that their time was limited made it bittersweet. He was experiencing the most profound connection of his life, but it came with the certainty that it couldn't last forever. As they walked back to his house that night, David realized that loving Zara was changing him in ways he was only beginning to understand. He was becoming someone capable of loving across species, across worlds, across the vast distances of space and time. It was terrifying and wonderful and completely impossible. But impossible or not, it was happening. And David had never felt more alive. 2 months into their extraordinary relationship, Zara arrived at David's house looking different. Her usual calm confidence was replaced by something that looked like worry. She paced around his backyard, her glow flickering slightly, which David had learned meant she was stressed. "Something's wrong," David said, watching her from the kitchen window. He stepped outside, and Luna immediately went to Zara's side, sensing her distress. "I need to tell you something important," Zara said, her voice more serious than he'd ever heard it. "Something I should have explained from the beginning, but I was afraid it would scare you away." David felt his stomach drop. "What is it?" Zara stopped pacing and faced him directly. "Our connection isn't just about love, David. It's about survival. Not just for my people, but for yours too." She gestured for him to sit on the bench, but she remained standing, as if she needed to move to get through what she had to say. "Told you my world is dying, but I didn't tell you everything. We've been studying Earth for decades, watching your species develop. We've seen this pattern before, on other worlds. Your planet is approaching a critical point." "What kind of critical point?" David asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Think about what's happening on Earth right now," Zara said. "Climate change, political division, people losing faith in science and facts, species going extinct, oceans becoming polluted, forests disappearing. Your planet is showing all the signs of a civilization that's about to either evolve or destroy itself." David had read the news. He knew things were bad and getting worse. But he'd always assumed that humanity would figure it out somehow, that technology or politics or something would save the day. "How bad is it really?" he asked. "Without intervention, your species has maybe 20 years before things become irreversible. The changes needed to save your planet require a level of cooperation and consciousness that humans haven't achieved yet, but we believe you can get there with help." Zara sat down beside him, her expression softening. "That's where people like you come in. We've identified about 40 humans worldwide who have the right combination of intelligence, empathy, and spiritual openness to serve as bridges between our species." They felt overwhelmed. Bridges to do what? To help humanity make the consciousness shift it needs to survive. We have knowledge about energy systems, sustainable technology, and ways of thinking that could solve many of Earth's problems. But we can't just give you this information directly. It has to be integrated gradually in ways that humans can understand and accept. And you think I can do that? I know you can. Your background in systems thinking, your ability to break down complex problems into manageable pieces. These aren't accidents, David. You were meant for this. David stood up and walked to the oak tree, pressing his palm against its bark. Over the past months, he'd learned to feel the tree's slow, steady life force. It helped calm him when he was stressed. But right now, even the tree's peaceful energy couldn't quiet the chaos in his mind. "This is too much," he said. "I'm just one person. How can I possibly help save the world?" "You're not alone," Zara said, walking over to join him. "There are others like you, in different countries, having similar experiences with other members of my people. Together, you'll form a network of consciousness bridges." "You mean there are other people going through what I'm going through right now?" "Yes. A teacher in Japan who's learning to communicate with plants. A doctor in Kenya who's developing new healing techniques based on energy work. An engineer in Brazil who's designing sustainable cities using principles we've taught her. You're all connected, even if you don't realize it yet." David felt a strange tingling sensation, like he was remembering something he'd forgotten. Over the past few weeks, he'd been having vivid dreams about meeting other people, having conversations in languages he didn't speak but somehow understood. "The dreams," he said suddenly. "I've been dreaming about other people. It's real, isn't it?" Zara nodded. "Your consciousness is already connecting with the others. As your abilities grow stronger, those connections will become clearer. Eventually, you'll be able to communicate with them directly, sharing knowledge and coordinating your efforts." The weight of responsibility felt crushing. David had always preferred working behind the scenes, fixing problems quietly without drawing attention to himself. The idea of being part of some grand mission to save humanity terrified him. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail? Took his hands in hers, and he felt that familiar warmth spreading through his body. "You won't fail because you won't be trying to do it alone. The love we've built, the connection between us, that's your foundation. That's what will keep you grounded when things get difficult. But you said you can't stay here forever. How can our connection be my foundation if you have to leave?" Zara's expression grew sad. "That's the part I'm still figuring out. I've never formed a bond this deep with anyone before. It's changing me just as much as it's changing you. I don't know if I can go back to my old life any more than you can. Go back to yours." They stood there in silence for a while, holding hands under the oak tree. David could feel something shifting inside him, like gears clicking into place. The fear was still there, but underneath it was a growing sense of purpose. "Tell me what I need to do," he said finally. Relief flooded Zara's face. "For now, keep learning. Keep developing your abilities. I'll start teaching you more advanced concepts. How to sense energy patterns in large groups of people. How to influence systems thinking. How to plant ideas that can grow and spread naturally. And then you'll start your real work. You'll begin subtly influencing the systems you're already part of. Your job, your community, your social networks. You'll help people think differently about problems and solutions. I'll help prepare them for the bigger changes that are coming." David thought about his coworkers, his neighbors, his family. Most of them were good people, but they were stuck in old ways of thinking. They saw problems as too big to solve, felt powerless to make real change. Maybe he could help them see things differently. "What about the other bridge people? Will I meet them when the time is right? For now, your dream connections are enough. But eventually, you'll need to work together more directly. The challenges ahead are too big for any one person to handle alone." Over the following weeks, David's training intensified. Zara taught him to sense the energy patterns of crowds, to recognize when groups of people were open to new ideas. She showed him how to communicate in ways that bypassed people's mental defenses, speaking directly to their intuition and wisdom. But the more he learned, the more he understood the magnitude of what they were trying to accomplish. Humanity was heading toward disaster, and a small group of people like him were supposed to somehow turn that around. The pressure was enormous. Whatever this mission required of him, whatever sacrifices he had to make, was worth it to be part of something this important. He was no longer just David Martinez, the quiet computer programmer. He was becoming something new, a bridge between worlds, a guardian of humanity's future, and despite the fear and uncertainty that felt like the most important thing he'd ever done, as he watched Zara fade away that night, promising to return with more training, David realized that his old life truly was over. But his new life, the one that might help save the world, was just beginning. 6 months had passed since that life-changing evening when Zara first appeared in David's neighborhood. The man who now sat in his backyard, meditating under the oak tree, was barely recognizable as the same person who used to live such a simple, predictable life. David could now sense energy patterns from miles away, feel the emotional state of his entire neighborhood, and communicate with the other bridge people across the world through dreams and meditation. But tonight felt different. There was a heaviness in the air that he'd never experienced before. Zara appeared beside the oak tree, but something about her was changed. Her glow was fainter, more translucent, and when she moved, she seemed to flicker like a candle in the wind. "You're leaving, aren't you?" David said without opening his eyes. He'd felt it in his bones all day, a growing sense of goodbye that he'd been trying to ignore. "My time here is ending," Zara confirmed, her voice carrying a sadness that made David's heart ache. "My people need me to return. Our world's situation has become more urgent." David opened his eyes and looked at her, even fading. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "How long do we have?" "Tonight is our last night together. At least, the last night I can appear to you in physical form." The words hit David like a punch to the stomach. He'd known this day would come, but knowing something and being ready for it were completely different things. He stood up and walked to her, reaching out to touch her face. His hand passed through her like she was made of mist. "I can't maintain a solid form anymore," Zara explained. "I've used too much energy staying here these past months." "But David, listen to me carefully. This isn't really goodbye." "What do you mean?" Zara's form solidified for a moment, and she took his hands. "The connection we've built, the love we share, it exists beyond physical form now. It's written into the fabric of your consciousness and mine. I'm not leaving you. I'm becoming part of you." David felt tears running down his cheeks. "I don't understand. Our bond has created something new, something that has never existed before in the universe. A consciousness that spans 2 worlds, 2 species. When I return to my people, I'll carry your humanity with me. You'll carry my cosmic awareness with you for the rest of your life." As she spoke, David felt a warmth spreading through his entire body, starting from his heart and moving outward. It was like every cell in his body was being gently touched by starlight. "You're not losing me," Zara continued. "You're gaining access to everything I am, everything my people know. And I'm gaining your strength, your determination, your beautiful human heart." The warmth intensified, and David felt his consciousness expanding. Suddenly, he could sense not just his neighborhood, but his entire city. He could feel the dreams of sleeping children, the worry of parents working late shifts, the hope of young couples planning their futures. But beyond that, he could sense something even larger, a network of consciousness spanning the globe. "The other bridge people," he whispered. "I can feel them all," as Zara said, her voice now seeming to come from inside his head as much as from her lips. "You're all connected now. Now the network is complete." David could sense them clearly now. The teacher in Japan was awake, tending to her garden, and feeling the same expansion of consciousness. The doctor in Kenya was delivering a baby, using healing energy in ways that seemed miraculous. The engineer in Brazil was designing a new water purification system that would save thousands of lives. "We're all changing at the same time," David realized. "The next phase of your mission is beginning. You're no longer just learning and preparing. Now you start actively working to help humanity evolve." David felt overwhelmed by the responsibility, but also supported by the knowledge that he wasn't alone. Through the network, he could feel the strength and determination of all the other bridge people. They were like family, connected at the deepest level. "What happens to you?" David asked. "What happens when you go back to your world?" Zara smiled, and her entire form began to glow brighter. "I become part of the collective consciousness of my people. I share everything I've learned about humanity, everything I've experienced with you. And through that sharing, my entire species gains the ability to understand and connect with yours. So this connection we built, it's not just between us. It's the foundation for a relationship between our entire species. You and the other bridge people will help prepare humanity for eventual contact with my people. And I and the others who came to Earth will help my people understand how to approach yours with respect and love. David felt the magnitude of what they'd accomplished. Their love story wasn't just personal, it was the beginning of an alliance. Between two worlds, as dawn approached, Zara's form became more and more translucent. But instead of feeling like she was disappearing, it felt like she was spreading out, becoming part of everything around them. David could feel her presence in the oak tree, in the morning breeze, in the warmth of the rising sun. I love you, David said, knowing these might be the last words he spoke to her physical form. I love you too, Zara replied. And I always will. Every time you help someone see beyond their limitations, every time you plant a seed of hope or understanding, I'll be there with you. Her form faded completely, but David didn't feel alone. If anything, he felt more connected than ever before. Through the bridge network, he could sense all the other chosen humans around the world working toward the same goal. And beneath that, he could feel Zara's love and wisdom, now permanently woven into his consciousness. In the months that followed, David's real work began. At his job, he started subtly introducing new ways of thinking about problems. He helped his team see connections they'd missed before, encouraged collaborative solutions that seemed to come naturally once people opened their minds to them. In his neighborhood, he became the person others came to for advice. There was something about David now that made people feel safe opening up to him. He helped resolve conflicts between neighbors, organized community gardens, started discussion groups that helped people think about their role in creating positive change. David discovered that his abilities continued to grow. He could sense when someone was ready to hear new ideas, when groups were open to change, when systems were ready to evolve. He learned to work behind the scenes, never taking credit, always planting seeds that others would nurture and grow. The other bridge people stayed in touch through their consciousness network, sharing strategies and supporting each other through the difficult work of helping humanity evolve. They were like guardians, working to guide their species toward a future where cooperation replaced competition, where wisdom replaced fear. Sometimes, late at night, David would sit under the oak tree and feel Zara's presence so strongly it was like she was sitting beside him. In those moments, he understood that their love had transcended every boundary, physical, cultural, even species-based. They had created something eternal. Luna had passed away peacefully in her sleep the previous year, but David knew she had sensed the importance of what was happening. Even in her final days, she would still go to the oak tree and wag her tail, as if greeting an old friend. David's family and friends noticed the changes in him. He was calmer, wiser, more present. When they asked what had happened to make him so different, he would smile and say he'd learned to see the bigger picture. It was true, even if they couldn't understand just how big that picture really was. As the years passed, David watched humanity slowly begin to shift. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, but it was real. People began thinking more systematically about problems, cooperating more readily across traditional boundaries, developing technologies that worked with nature instead of against it. The climate crisis that had seemed insurmountable began to show signs of improvement. Political divisions started healing as people learned to find common ground. Scientific breakthroughs accelerated as researchers shared knowledge more freely. David knew that he and the other bridge people were just one part of this transformation, but they were a crucial part, helping to guide humanity through its most important evolutionary step. And through it all, Zara was with him. It's not in physical form, but in every insight, every moment of wisdom, every act of love that helped humanity grow. Their impossible romance had become the foundation for humanity's impossible future. David Martinez was no longer just a computer programmer from Phoenix. He was a guardian of two worlds, a bridge between species, a living testament to the power of love to transcend every boundary the universe could create, and this was only the beginning. David couldn't sleep that night, kept replaying the encounter in his mind, wondering if it had really happened or if he was losing his grip on reality. He checked his phone, Googled hallucinations from stress and seeing things that aren't there, but nothing he read explained what he had experienced. The memory felt too real, too detailed, to be his imagination. Luna seemed different too. She kept looking toward the front door and wagging her tail as if she was waiting for someone to arrive. Dogs had better instincts than humans, David thought. If Luna wasn't worried, maybe he shouldn't be either. 3 days passed with no sign of Zara. David went to work, wrote code, attended meetings, and tried to act normal. But inside he felt like he was waiting for something. Every evening walk with Luna became an adventure. Would she appear again? Was she watching him from somewhere he couldn't see? On the 4th evening, as David was washing dishes after dinner, he felt that familiar tingling in the air. The lights in his kitchen dimmed slightly, and Luna started barking excitedly at the back door. David's heart raced as he dried his hands and walked to the window. There she was, standing in his backyard under the old oak tree. Zara looked exactly as she had before, glowing softly in the evening light. But this time, she seemed more solid, more present. She waved at him through the window, and David found himself smiling despite his nervousness. He opened the back door and stepped outside. Luna bounded over to Zara, tail wagging furiously. To David's amazement, Zara knelt down and petted Luna, who responded like she was greeting an old friend. "You came back," David said, still hardly believing what he was seeing. "I promised I would," Zara replied, standing up and brushing off her dress. "I know you've been worried about your sanity. That's normal, but you're experiencing challenges. Everything your culture teaches about reality." David walked closer, studying her face. In the better light, he could see that her features were almost human, but with subtle differences. Her eyes were larger, her cheekbones more defined, and her ears had a slight point to them. But it was her expression that struck him most. She looked at him with such warmth and understanding that he felt like he'd known her his whole life. "I have so many questions," David said. "I don't even know where to start." Zara smiled and gestured to the wooden bench David had built last summer. "Let's sit. I'll tell you everything I can." They sat together on the bench, with Luna curled up at their feet. The evening air was cool and comfortable, and David felt his nervousness beginning to fade. There was something about Zara's presence that made him feel safe and accepted. "First," Zara began, "let me tell you about my people. We call ourselves the Viridians, and we come from a star system about 40 light years from Earth. Our world is much older than yours. We've had thousands of years to develop abilities that your species is just beginning to discover." David leaned forward, fascinated. "What kind of abilities?" "Can sense the energy that flows through all living things. We can communicate without words, travel through space by shifting our consciousness. And most importantly, we can recognize soul connections across vast distances." "Soul connections?" David asked. Zara turned to face him fully. "Every conscious being has a unique energy signature, like a fingerprint of the spirit. Most beings have several potential matches scattered across the universe. These matches are souls that complement each other perfectly, that can learn and grow together in ways that neither could alone." David felt a chill run down his spine. "And you think I'm your match?" "I don't think it, David. I know it. I've been sensing your energy. For years, following the trail that led me to Earth, to your city, to you. When I saw you that first night, I felt the connection complete itself. Didn't you feel it too?" David had to admit that he had. Even now, sitting beside Zara, he felt more complete than he had in years. It was like finding a missing piece of himself he hadn't known was lost. "But why?" he asked. "Why would someone like you travel all this way for someone like me?" "I'm just a computer programmer. I fix bugs in software and debug code. I'm not special." Zara's expression grew serious. "You're more special than you realize, David. Your mind works in ways that are rare among humans. You see patterns, solve complex problems, and think in systems. But more than that, you have something we call bridge consciousness, the ability to connect different worlds of thought and experience. I don't understand what that means." "It means you can help translate between our species. You can take the advanced concepts my people understand and break them down into forms that other humans can grasp. You can be a bridge between our worlds. David felt overwhelmed. But why would you need a bridge? What's so important that you'd travel 40 light years to find me? Zara was quiet for a long moment, looking up at the stars beginning to appear. In the darkening sky, when she spoke again, her voice was sadder than before. My world is dying, David. Our sun is aging and expanding, and we have perhaps 50 of your years before our planet becomes uninhabitable. We could travel to other worlds, but we're not colonizers. We don't take what isn't ours. Instead, we've been searching for compatible species that we can share knowledge with, learn from, and perhaps preserve something of ourselves through. And you think humans are compatible? Some humans are. Your species is at a critical point. In its development, you're advanced enough to understand complex concepts, but young enough to still be flexible in your thinking. Most importantly, some humans have the genetic and spiritual markers that indicate deep compatibility with our kind. David felt a weight settling on his shoulders. I'm one of those humans. You are. There are only a few dozen like you on Earth right now. Each of us has been seeking our match, hoping to form connections that will help both our species grow and survive. David stood up and walked a few steps away, trying to process everything Zara had told him. The logical part of his mind was screaming that this was impossible, that he was having some kind of elaborate fantasy. But the deeper part of him, the part that felt complete when Zara was near, believed every word. What happens now? He asked, turning back to her. Now, if you're willing, we learn from each other. I'll teach you about consciousness, energy, and the true nature of reality. You'll help me understand human nature and how to communicate with your species. Together, we'll prepare for what's coming. What's coming? Zara stood and walked over to him. Change, David. Big change. Your world is about to go through a transformation that will determine whether humanity survives the next century. The connections we're forming now, the bridges we're building, they're going to be crucial for guiding your species through that transformation. David felt scared and excited at the same time. His quiet, predictable life was definitely over. But looking at Zara, seeing the hope and determination in her eyes, he realized he didn't want his old life back. This was bigger than himself. Bigger than anything he'd ever been part of. I have one more question, David said. What's that? When you say you're my match, what exactly does that mean? Are we talking about friendship, partnership, or something else entirely? Zara smiled, and David felt that familiar warmth spread through his chest. I don't know yet, she said honestly. Our species have never formed connections like this before. We're creating something entirely new. But I do know that what we have is real. And it's important. And it's going to change both of us in ways we can't imagine. David nodded, feeling ready for whatever came next. His life had just become the most important thing he'd ever done. He was determined not to let Zara down. As the stars grew brighter overhead, David realized that he was no longer just a man walking his dog through a quiet neighborhood. He was part of something cosmic, something that connected worlds and species and possibilities he was only beginning to understand. And for the first time in his life, felt exactly right.